Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode, oh man, I always do this, 231. I was going to say 213. 231, recorded on December 19th, 2012. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And I'm Chris Barberi.
Now, as was pointed out in the chat room, this is probably the last podcast you'll ever hear from any of us. I guess technically I have one more podcast tomorrow you could listen to if you want before the end of the world happens. Josh, what are you doing to celebrate the end of days?
I'm overdrafting my checking account.
It seems reasonable. Alan, how about you?
I'm just going to work. Sorry.
Chris, anything exciting?
No, not really.
Wait, which date is it that this happens?
It's the 21st.
The
The 21st?
I think.
Yeah. So you don't even get one more weekend in. So your last weekend already happened, which is kind of crap if you think about it. You didn't even know. So, despite all that, we'll continue to talk about hardware like it matters. A lot of interesting stuff this week in terms of our own personal content. Not a lot of really damaging or exciting news in the industry, I guess I'll say. First stop is if you want to hang around to play games after the show, we are still planning on doing that, and we're going to try to play PlanetSide 2 again. I hate using that modifier, try, but we're gonna attempt to play PlanetSide 2. We're going to use TeamSpeak backend for audio instead of trying to use Skype and communicate with people that are all on the server already. The in-server VoIP is kind of crappy. But if you want to try it out, PlanetSide 2, I made a post of it on the front page at pcper.com that links to a YouTube video that has a little bit more tutorial in it. It's about 20 minutes long, something like that, if you want to take a listen to that. And then that post also has the information for our TeamSpeak server that you'll want to sign up and join in after the recording here, which, by the way, we're recording Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, pending end of world. But if we're still here next week, we'll do it at the same time. Maybe. Yeah, probably. It's Christmas. We'll figure out the schedule. End of world / Christmas. It's complicated. So let's get into articles that happened, things that happened. I finally published my review of the Intel NUC next unit of computing.
You're talking curly talk now.
Yeah.
Can you do your head thing?
And so if you had three of them, is that yuck?
Right.
No.
Next unit of computing, this is a 4-inch by 4-inch by 2-inch computer. It is based on... oh, wait, actually I have one right here. Good thought, Ken. This is it. This is a full computer. It is based on mobile technology, Intel mobility processors, a Core i3
You could skip that across the lake so nicely.
It would be an expensive demonstration, but you could.
Well, Intel sent that to you for free, so what's the point?
Well, it still seems kind of a waste of $350 to me. But yeah, so Intel NUC next unit of computing. This is just like, I don't know, I'm really kind of curious. I don't know if this is just like a one-off project for Intel or if they plan on doing this with further platforms down the line or that kind of thing. It's really kind of interesting. If you look at our review of the unit, what you'll see is, well, first we have a video where we take it apart and kind of install all that good stuff inside of it, because there is still a DIY aspect to it. It's not simply a computer that you just turn on and it's ready to go. But if you look at this diagram here, it's kind of interesting. It shows you the relative size of Micro ATX, Mini ITX, and then the NUC down here at 4x4. And they give you some use cases for it, home theater PC, digital signage, that kind of deal. There's two models. This is kind of what the key part is. There's two models of it. There is the one we had, which is the DC3217BY, has 3 USB ports, HDMI, and Thunderbolt. If you go to the other version, the DC3217IYE, you get no Thunderbolt that is replaced with gigabit LAN and an additional HDMI port. So you're actually getting 2 HDMI ports, 3 USB ports, and gigabit Ethernet, as opposed to having to depend on internal Wi-Fi. Inside the box, another kind of annoying thing is you get this AC adapter, but you don't get the power cord for it. You don't get the power cable that actually goes from this brick to the wall, because their claim was that it's differs by region, so they don't want to have to. They wanted to keep it as low a cost as possible, small box as possible. They don't have to include multiple cables. I'm thinking every other company figures out a way how to do this, where I don't have to remember to purchase a C5 power cable from Amazon or Newegg when I'm buying this. It's kind of frustrating. I mentioned it briefly. The core specs of this is a Core i3 3217U processor, ultra low voltage mobility stuff, QS77 chipset, two SODIMM DDR3 slots, two mini PCIe slots, one half, one full, and this one obviously has Thunderbolt, Windows 7 and 8 support and that kind of stuff. So if we look at just the externals of it, I kind of showed you that already, but now let's take a look inside this unit. And what I do like is it's completely simple to get into. You kind of think if you see a computer like this, you kind of think, well, Mac Mini, Apple TV type size thing, and it's going to be really hard to work on, and it's going to be just a self-contained unit. But in fact, it ships basically as a bare bones unit. It doesn't have wireless, it doesn't have storage, it doesn't have memory installed. So you have to do all that yourself. So if you open up the case, you're met with essentially a bare 4x4 motherboard up here on top. You can see that here. We've got our mini PCIe slots, we've got our SODIMM slots, we've got the attachments for the Wi-Fi antenna. The metal base around it, the sides of it act as part of the antenna. And you can see some of the bare board here. And if we flip it on the other side, you can actually see the 3217 processor on the left and the QS7700 on the right. Installing the components is pretty straightforward. If you've ever worked inside of a laptop or done anything like that, it's simple. Drop in, plug in, one screw for the wireless, one screw for the storage. Now, Intel sent us these components to build our system, and that's going to be important when I talk about one of the things that was really annoying about it. They sent a Centrino 6235 controller. Chris, that's a dual band, right? That's 2x2 Wi-Fi. Do you know?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay. And then they sent an Intel 520 series mSATA 180 gig SSD. Now, what's cool about this is if you look at the picture, that is a 180 gig SSD, right? To give you a sense of scale, right? There's 4 chips on the other side as well. But it's a SandForce-based controller. It's SATA 6. It's really fast, but 180 gigs in that little tiny card. The downside was I couldn't find these for sale anywhere. I found other mSATA SSDs, but not Intel's 520. So
if only you had a banana for size comparison.
Yeah, I didn't even know that 520 was made in that form factor.
Oh, okay. Well,
180.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. I know I don't, but anyway. Installation easy. Memory installation easy. We put 4 gigs of memory in there, and there you go. You have a fully populated NUC. Performance metrics, not particularly fantastic. It is a 1.8 gigahertz part, no turbo boost. That's as high as it goes. It's labeled here as a Core i5 3427U, but it's a 3217U. And so you can see what we did was in our performance testing, we compared it to like a ThinkPad X1 Ultrabook. We compared it to a low-end Sandy Bridge. You can kind of see where the NUC stands in regards on CPU performance. If we look at X264 results, gaming performance, it's on par with an Ultrabook in terms of gaming performance. So you'll be able to do really, really minor things. Left 4 Dead, low-end settings, that kind of stuff. Don't expect to play any modern current games on this with any kind of reliability. But if you look at this is something that seemed odd. If you look at the storage results, they just seem out of place. Like they're so fast compared to the rest of the performance of the system. Like we're getting up to 550 megabytes per second read speeds. Keeps this, dual-core, hyper-threaded, integrated graphics CPU really running real quick, right? So it seems overkill to me, I guess, is basically what I would say compared to the rest of the components in the build. It was able.
That's progress, and it's progress that we can all use.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you're going to do, right? If you're going to build a home theater PC, you want storage, you want capacity, not speed. But you're going to have to.
I got to throw this up. Wouldn't you like to have really fast storage for one of these?
Fast storage? What do you mean? Like internal?
Yeah.
it's pretty fast internally. It's not.
Yeah, it's what, 10 megabit per second or 10 megabyte?
I guess I don't
As
know.
compared
I mean, if you use it as an
200 to
external
300?
hard drive, maybe, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, Ryan, what do you think the use case is on this thing? I mean, is it HTPC? Is it, maybe companies could use this as a small form factor PC? What do you think they're angling for? Or is it really just a test?
They angled it as display. What did I call it? Display. Just connectivity that way. You hook up. You get the dual HDMI version. You can hook up 2 displays to it. It's wireless. You could do your basic computing. They kind of brand it as a home theater PC. It has some capability for that. If we were able to play, MKV files at really low CPU utilization. It'll play back media just fine. You're going to have an external drive, though, if you want to store anything on it. If you don't just want to make it a streaming, pass-through box, which then, if you have to add an external hard drive, kind of defeats the purpose of this tiny form factor. There are a lot of enterprise use cases for it. The idea that you can use the included VESA mount to mount it to the back of a display or to mount it in any kind of discrete areas. It's small. It runs super low power, very, very quiet. I think what they were trying to do is they're saying, here's this form factor we've made, 4-inch by 4-inch board. Here's an example of what you can do with it to OEMs and to ODMs. Now go create your own designs. Because if you look at the motherboard, there's actually another USB header on the motherboard, which obviously is not useful in this scenario where you have no ports or anything, or any cable attachments. So the boards are meant to put into other designs, right? They're looking for, I guess, a semi-embedded type market for that. So I think this is more of a kind of a demonstration for it, but also, to the enthusiast, it's like, hey, you can buy one of these and kind of play around with it, and here's what you can do with some smaller form factor things. There was one big kind of problem with it, though. We had a major stability issue that we found when we hooked it all up. We installed Windows 8 on it. We started the copy from our local file server onto this machine, where we copy a bunch of benchmarks over, and we run them, and that's how we do some of our testing. Well, during that initial file copy, it locked up and had to be rebooted. And that's kind of weird. It did it a second time. And after looking at some other reports, it had happened before, right? Other reviewers had seen it, and it appeared to be the SSD and the wireless somehow combining and overheating. And you could touch the top of the SSD while you're doing one of those wireless transfers, and it would get really hot. And the wireless sits directly underneath it. You can kind of see in this picture here where I show the SSD, and you can kind of see the wireless card underneath it, that these chips are in very tight confines, right? And it
Hot pocket.
It's even worse because the way that SSD is sitting in there, it's upside down, and the SandForce chip is facing
down,
the
right.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And those run warm. I mean, SandForce draws like close to an amp.
Yeah, and those
it's just a
Wi-Fi
really
adapters
power-hungry,
will run really hot too.
Yeah, so they're usually in an enclosure, and they usually have a thermal pad
Right.
between that and the housing, even. So that's just a
Or
bare-
maybe some duct tape.
At least. This guy. So regardless, I mean, it happened to multiple people. It was happening to Scott at Tech Report. It happened to me. I saw it happen to one other reviewer. So it's the fact that we all saw it, but somehow Intel didn't see it before they sent it out. It's kind of weird. The workaround that Scott used was he used a USB wireless adapter, which totally defeats the purpose. We were able to use like a Thunderbolt Ethernet adapter. Again, kind of defeats the purpose of buying this one over the one with Ethernet, maybe. So they need to fix that. The Intel has said they have been able to reproduce it, and they're going to try to fix it in a BIOS or something like that. The other kind of drawback is the price. It's not as cheap as you would expect. The total for this build, or for a build, was with this bare bones unit, 8 gigs of memory. I guess I should drop that down to 4, but it won't change that much. The 120 gig SandForce mSATA SSD, Centrino controller, and the C5 power cable for $3, which you can't forget. And your total is like $520. That's a lot to pay for. It's
Something to skip across the lake with.
Right. It's small, it's cool, but I built a system on PC Part Picker that is a much larger system physically, right? I think it's take up like 20 times this physical space on your desk
Because
than this
people
would.
like bigger.
Not me. Like smaller Josh. But this system that I built for $430 has a Trinity APU, the highest end 5800K, a micro ATX motherboard, 8 gigs memory, 120 gig SSD, a case, and a power supply for $430. And if you're looking for a small computer that will game better, perform better, this is going to be it. I mean, it's a different target audience, right? And like I said, I don't really think Intel is planning on selling a bunch of these to enthusiasts, to PC users. They're trying to use this as a demonstration of what you can do with the form factor. But if you were considering getting one of these as a home theater PC / mainstream gaming machine, I think it's probably not a good place to start at. It's probably not the right way to go.
It's enough to stream like H.264 1080p, right? It's beefy enough.
Yeah. I mean, right. And Ken says you can get an Apple TV to do that kind of stuff, and it's $99. It's just, you can do a lot more with this than you could with an Apple TV, no doubt. And you could do a lot with this. We thought, okay, it's got a Thunderbolt connection. We could attach a Thunderbolt RAID array to it and make it a file server, right? And we could use wireless, or we could use a Thunderbolt to Ethernet adapter and make it hardwired, right? So you could do that with this computer, but it's $521 to be a head unit essentially for an array, right? Which you could hook up to any one of the other of your computers that happens to have Thunderbolt or something like that.
That costs almost as much as the array.
Well, no. Well, the one I'm using was like $1,200.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is you can get like a decent NAS box for like $500. So. Right.
And again, this will be able to do more stuff. It will run. You could open up a web browser on it and do all that kind of deal that you wouldn't be able to do on a lot of that stuff. It's a really cool product. I just don't know where it fits in yet, other than it being a demo of things to come, maybe in the future.
You know what Uncle Joe Biden says about that?
No.
It's not good, but it's tight.
I don't. Did he actually ever say that? Like, I don't.
Shh. Never mind.
I don't.
Stop. Don't stop.
Oh, God.
This may be the beginning of the Mayan end of the world.
Somebody let him into the beer a little early tonight. Let's go through some other articles. Lee posted a review of the Corsair AX860i digital power supply. This is part of their new series of power supplies that will connect to your operating system through USB connection, and you can communicate with it and monitor voltages, monitor amperage, draw rates, all that kind of stuff. So you can see here kind of how the software works, fan speeds and all that kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, it's pretty cool. I think if I were to buy a new power supply today, I would probably get one that had some form of that monitoring in it. And we'd previously done a review of the 1200 watt unit, and this is obviously going to be a lot less expensive than that, and probably in the majority of people's field of vision. So let's see, this is $229. You can get the 760i for $209, so we're getting more comfortable range than the 1200 watt units. So check out that review if you're looking for a new power supply. We also posted a video this week of we went from this to an all-in-one computer from HP, the Z1 workstation. Totally different ideas, but two very interesting and cool kind of designs to a PC. So the HP Z1 is an all-in-one computer. It's a workstation, which means it uses a Xeon processor and it uses Quadro graphics. As an enthusiast, that means that it's overpriced for the same performance you can get on consumer parts. But if you're in the workstation world, if you're in the AutoCAD world, Maya world, that kind of stuff, you're used to being charged a lot more for the same type of stuff, but you're paying for software and support and for certifications and that kind of deal. What is cool about this system, you can see here, it's an all-in-one 27-inch display, 2560 by 1440, really nice screen. Fairly thin, not super thin, but it can be VESA mountable, USB 3 support, FireWire. That's how you know it's a workstation. It's got FireWire prominent on it. But what's cool about it is how you access the internals. So you can see when it folds down here, kind of lays flat, and then
it's like a supplicant.
Yes, it is actually. And then you pop open the screen, physically opens up, like kind of just like, I don't know, like a pizza box. Yeah, like a briefcase. And inside you are met with this, an incredibly clean design for the internals of a system where everything is not only well organized, you can actually access everything, right? So here's your Quadro card. It's an MXM card with a big heatsink and fan on it. You can detach that. Here's your CPU. You can remove that. Here's your SSD. You can remove that or add a second one. Here's your DIMM slot, your optical drive. Even down to the included keyboard and mouse that HP gives you. This is just a standard USB port with like the wireless dongle connected here. So if you don't like their keyboard, you can just use your own Logitech one and plug it in there. And you don't have to worry about having anything sticking out of your all-in-one device.
You know what? I like using my own dongle and not having it stick out.
Are we going to have to disconnect him already? Is this how it's going to be today? 400 watt, I think it's a 400 watt, removable power supply, same way. Xeon processor. It's a Sandy Bridge part. The Quadro graphics in it is the 3000M, which is actually a Fermi part, lower performance level than a GTX 560, if you look at just shaders and clocks and that kind of stuff. So I was a little bit disappointed because, again, from a consumer standpoint, you're like, oh, okay, maybe you have this workstation, it's great for doing actual work, you want to play some games on it. You're not going to be able to push 2560 by 1440 resolution with a GTX 550.
Now, is that a touchscreen, Ryan?
It is not a touchscreen. This actually came before Windows 8 was released, I think. We just hadn't had a chance to finish reviewing it yet.
I mean, you can touch the screen.
But I don't think, do you think a workstation touchscreen is really useful?
It depends. I saw Patrick Norton had one on Texilla a week or so ago, and when he kind of folded it down flat, and if you're manipulating a lot of data, moving maps around, that sort of thing, it actually looked like it worked really well. And I can imagine doing even gaming at that point.
Did you ever watch Minority Report?
He wasn't touching the
I
screen.
didn't. No, I didn't get it. Explain to me Minority Report, Josh.
Workstation touching the
He was just
screen.
waving his hands.
I don't think that's what he
Twiddling
did on
things.
Minority Report. Other than that, it's an MXM module that's kind of unique. So that also means the upgradability of that part is not really that great. It has 3 mini PCIe slots, for wireless. There's one for wireless. You could do Bluetooth or whatever other stuff goes in mini PCIe slots these days. I don't really know, but it was a really cool design. What I would like to see, this was expensive. It was like $4,500 for our configuration. What I would like to see is them take this all-in-one design to a consumer line and offer it in kind of configurable, upgradable systems, right? So use an MXM module, but maybe start to offer various options for it. The processor is upgradable. The memory is upgradable. This particular HP Z1, I think, started at $1,400, but quickly escalates above that when you start adding in the professional level components and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I thought it was really, really cool. Overpriced for the people that are interested in consumer stuff, but if you're in a workstation market, then it might be worth it. I don't know. Something different and unique, I guess.
It sounds like the way to go is to get the cheap model and then just do all the upgrades yourself.
Well, you can't really buy MXM module graphics cards anywhere that I know of.
Okay, well, splurge on the graphics, but everything else should be swappable, right?
I think so, yeah. You should be able to upgrade to a better processor, add in your memory, swap out the slimline drive for a Blu-ray writer, whatever it is you want to do. A lot of the cost is going to be in the display, but yeah, if you get the I don't know, I'd have to see what the cheapest processor actually was on that, and kind of in the I'm imagining the GPU is a significant portion of that upgrade price. Quadro graphics.
Yeah, Quadro cards are not cheap at all. Some of them go $3,000-$4,000 just for the card.
Yeah. Okay, and we'll round it out. I feel like I'm dominating the conversation, with the exception of Josh, who makes sure he gets his points in.
Points.
See, nothing. Left it open for him, nothing. We did just publish a building a Hackintosh computer step-by-step guide and with hardware suggestions. Ken wrote this up for us. We did a video of it. We had been talking about it for a while. We basically, if you watch the video or you read this article, you will see exactly how we put together a PC, how we chose components, and then how we installed the software on a Hackintosh. And the moral of the story is it's a lot easier than it used to be. When we first started doing video stuff, I tried to build a Hackintosh because of the access to software tools that we needed. But I didn't feel like buying a Mac Pro for $8,000. Go figure. And it was pretty difficult to get all of the components working. Now, if you choose the right motherboard and the right video card, which happens to be a gigabyte motherboard with Z77 platform and an NVIDIA GeForce 600 series card, you can, it's not quite, but almost just install the operating system and away you go. I mean, there's a couple little steps you need to do to make sure you get the most updated Kepler driver, that you have the most up-to-date audio and networking driver. But the tools from the website TonyMacX86 are incredibly easy to use, and really kind of eliminate a lot of the confusion in building a Hackintosh. And then you're free to buy whatever software you want. You're free to do whatever you want to do in the Mac ecosystem. You can have 2 hard drives, one with Windows and one with Mac OS, and every time you reboot, the bootloader will let you select which one you want to boot to. It actually was pretty cool, to the point where we were considering having one here in the office, maybe that we do switch back and forth between, depending on what tool is best for the job. For our particular hardware, we went with a gigabyte motherboard, the UP5TH Z77 board. It has 2 Thunderbolt ports on it. The only caveat to that is Thunderbolt on a Hackintosh is not hot swappable. You have to shut down the machine, connect the Thunderbolt device, and then boot it up. And that is, I don't know exactly what that limitation is. It's something to do with the driver implementation, and I don't really know 100% the power management on that, because you are essentially, when you hot plug something in, you are hot plugging in something to the PCI Express bus. So that's a little bit of a pain. But if you're talking about connecting external hard drives and storage and stuff like that, you're not going to be disconnecting it very often, would be my guess. And then we went with the GTX 680. Yes, you can install Steam. Yes, we played some games on it. I think it has Borderlands 2. It has all the Valve games, obviously. What's that? It has all the Blizzard games. Yeah, the Blizzard games as well. So, I mean, you can do Mac gaming on it. I mean, if you're going to dual boot, I would game on Windows, but you can do that if you want. So, yeah, I mean, the software itself, installation was pretty easy. The only, let's say, gray area is you have to get the operating system. And, to get Mountain Lion, you buy it from the from the Mac App Store, and you download it on a Mac. Well, that means you have to already have a Mac or a friend with a Mac who's willing to download the software. You have to pay $30 for it, and then use this tool to make it a bootable USB drive, and then you boot off that, and you kind of go from there, right? So it's that's the only kind of gray area, I guess. I'm sure you're breaking all kinds of EULA rules when you install the OS.
Well, thank goodness you got Ken in the house.
Right. I let him break all the rules, so if they come ask me any questions, I just point at him and go,
He's the intern.
I
He's
didn't know.
Covered in oil.
I didn't know.
Guilty.
Guilty.
So if you don't want all the performance necessarily, and if you're willing to, I guess, give up the Thunderbolt thing, there's sort of a cheat you can do.
What's that?
Without buying anything hardware, actually. But you won't get the same performance. But you could just do like this,
a virtual machine,
and then poof, look, it's a Mac.
Yeah. Yeah, but you do lose a lot on the performance side. If you're going to if the reason you're building a Mac is to kind of become familiar with the operating system and how all that works, a VM could be a good way. If you're building a Mac Hackintosh because you want to use Final Cut Pro instead of Adobe whatever, then you're going to
if you're doing video, or you might be able to get away with the photo stuff, but the video stuff, it's gonna, unless you have just a crap load of RAM, it's gonna overwhelm it.
Yeah. we did do some minor performance testing. You know, Cinebench runs on Mac OS. We used, what is this, AJA system test for some storage testing to look at the Thunderbolt and the USB 3 performance. USB 3, you know, we got 222 megabytes per second reads and 770 megabytes on the Thunderbolt. So not quite as fast as we were getting on Windows, but pretty damn fast. And again, what we did was, in the video, you'll see us compare the system components we built for this Hackintosh versus the top-end iMac. And we saved about $600 to $700 on the system, and we got better performing components out of our Hackintosh, right? And that includes a 27-inch display, Korean monitor, you know, included with the iMac 27-inch, right? So there are still some trade-offs, but I think overall it makes a lot of sense if you're comfortable building your own computer and not necessarily having, you know, you can't take this to the Genius Bar and plop it down on the counter and be like, hey, I ran this update and now none of my software is working. Could you fix this? I don't think that would go over well.
That'll make a good video.
I think it would. Let's test and see how customer-friendly Apple really is.
Yeah, I mean, get Damon to send you the XPS One, and then bring that whole damn thing in and
Right.
plop it down.
Yeah, yeah. Or we did see some people that had installed it on the Nook, so we could do that, right, and bring it in. It's like, yeah, my Mac Mini that I bought off eBay, the software's not working.
Put it on that Z1 and try to say it's an iMac.
I think that would work out. Unfortunately, I had to send that Z1 back. That was neat, but I had to send that back. So go check out that article if you're interested in it. Ken did a good job. We did a video. Ken co-stars in the video, so if you need more Ken in your life, Josh.
He's rooming with me in CES, right?
Well,
He's rooming with all of us
he's
at CES.
going to now. I'll tell you that.
Bring the baby oil.
So, yeah, check out that video. We posted that today. God bless it. All right, so, and on that note, long-winded, and I'm sorry that it was mostly me talking, guys. I'll let you guys handle all the news items. I'm just going to go take a nap. But first, before we do that, I need to step to the side so that our good friend Alex can step into this very position and tell you about an MSI product.
The all-new Z77 M-Power mainboard from MSI is poised to change the overclocking game. Every Z77 M-Power board will have a factory 24-hour military-class burn-in test completed before shipping. Additionally, performance-optimized features such as Go-To BIOS, Multi-BIOS 2, V-checkpoints, Bluetooth 3.0, and onboard Wi-Fi allow users convenience and total system control over their overclocking and gaming experience. This is the new endurance champion, Z77 M-Power from MSI.
Thank you very much, Alex, for continuing to support the PC Perspective podcast and showing up every week to do that ad live for us. I think that's impressive. Okay, let's get into some news. Before we do that, actually, I wanted to make sure we kind of concluded our Cutting the Cord series with Chris. We wrapped it up, so tell us, how'd it go?
Yeah, so we finished up the 5-part series on building your home theater PC. Just walked through in the last article how to install some of the add-ons like getting Netflix, Hulu Desktop, and a few other little add-ons that I like to put on mine. One of the interesting things that I pulled up in the last one was power usage, because we were really trying to push this towards a as low power as possible. And I found that the top end numbers we were seeing is right around 80 watts. So even when it was booting, it was peaking up around 80. And then I ran it over about 5 days and just kind of tracked how much power it was using, and it was close to about 50 watts, pretty much average the whole time. So I mean, it's using a little bit more power than I probably would like, and I may try and tweak that a little bit, but partially that's due to the fact that we're never letting it go to sleep. And
that's because you're using extenders and that kind of stuff, or your plan is to?
Yeah, and there may be some ways around it. I mean, the biggest problem that I've run into so far is that when the machine goes to sleep, it will not wake up the IR receiver, so I can't use the remote.
So you got to go up and kick it, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like what I did to that buffalo in Yellowstone.
Put it to sleep and won't wake up.
Yeah, I went up and kicked it.
So we finished it up. Hopefully, some folks found it useful. And what I may do is do kind of like a 3-month follow-up after we've had it running for a while, and just kind of, experiences and a few things that I may tweak. So
If any of you guys missed the series, just go to PCPro.com and in the search box at the top, type in "cutting the cord," and you'll see all 5 of those parts show up in the search. And click through the first one, read about. Oh, thanks, ThinkPad.
So, dude, he went all Lorena Bobbitt on it. Did he go for a drive afterwards and throw the cable out the window?
I actually had to take that picture with the scissors and the cord, because you wouldn't believe how hard it is to find a picture like that you don't have to pay $20 to download.
Sorry.
Hey, let me look at the calendar. Does Josh have anything to talk about on this? Because we could just. All right, Josh.
Kick him to the curb.
He's trying to get it all in before the end of the world.
Yeah,
It's been all bottled up.
Hey, Josh, tell me about ASUS maybe partnering with VIA for ARM SoCs.
It's kind of interesting because VIA makes x86 CPUs, which is one of 3 groups in the world does such a thing. So it's kind of interesting that VIA has gone the ARM route and will be offering CPUs based on the Cortex A9 processor. If I am correct, am I correct?
I think so.
Yeah, this is a low-cost tablet.
I think VIA has previously made ARM SoCs. I want to say they haven't been popular, at least especially not over here. But I want to say what was that? I want to say it was not Imagination. There was some brand of processor that they had at the last Computex we went to that had ARM cores in it. But they were very not a big player in the ARM business. So the fact that ASUS might use them for a super low-cost tablet is kind of interesting.
It is, because, VIA's been in the SoC industry and the chipset industry for ages. Mm-hmm. When Intel came over and decided to sell chipsets of their own, we saw groups like Opti and others just drop out of sight. They had products that were not competitive in terms of performance, price, and features, and VIA was one of the last survivors. I mean, it was VIA, ALI, SIS.
I forgot about those. ULI?
Yeah, those guys. And, they've continued to just keep on chugging along. I mean, VIA has a lot of USB controllers, both 2.0 and 3.0 stuff, USB 3.0 hub chips. And so they've kept their fingers in the pie, and they've continued with, the low-powered x86. They were really one of the first who really hit that niche when it was just a niche instead of something that we see pretty much everywhere. Take example, the Nook you got there. Nook. Whatever. Anyway.
So, I mean, I guess my question would be, they're A9, actually, Cortex A9 processors. I don't know if you said A7 or A9 before.
A9.
Okay. If this is going to be in a $99 tablet, is this just ASUS picking VIA because VIA was the one willing to get the least profit out of all of the ARM vendors, do you think? Or do they have something unique, maybe, that makes them compelling in the area all of a sudden?
I can't look into the headquarters in Taiwan and give you an answer.
Not legally.
But, no, not at all.
Restraining order.
Yeah. It's embarrassing. But anyway, VIA has a pedigree in SoCs. And they have been offering, chipset and CPU combos for ages. They've got graphics. They bought up S3. They've released graphics chips. They continue to fund that design group. They had a robust chipset business, and they continue to employ those engineers who have made those things. And so it's all just kind of like coming together right now. And they may be very well undercutting everybody in terms of the product and the price, but they have the expertise, they have patents, they've got the manufacturing partners to be able to do this effectively. All these parts just came together into this, this super mobile area, and it's going to be low cost. I mean, VIA chipsets were the budget products for the time. I mean, back in the the 5.9, I can't remember all those stinking.
If you can't remember, I won't remember. So
the Apollo Pro Plus.
Okay. Yeah.
Those type of
KT
chips.
266.
They were all what?
The KT 266 chipsets.
Yeah, that's from the AMD side. I was thinking more Intel, but anyway.
Whatever.
Yeah, they had products that were less expensive. They were just as feature packed, and they were able to keep the company afloat with these products. And I think this is just a logical extension of that. Whether or not they're selling them for a loss, I doubt it.
Yeah.
But they're probably skating pretty thin on the margins.
If this turns out to be true, we'll see or hear something about it in a few less than 3 weeks at the Consumer Electronics Show. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Lucid is a company we've talked about a lot here, maybe overly so, depending on what you think about the product and what it does. It's one of those technologies that I think a lot of people will utilize, not really necessarily knowing that they're doing so. So the Lucid Virtue MVP stuff allows you to take advantage of CPU, integrated graphics, and associated technology like QuickSync, while also using discrete graphics. It also allows you to, if you have a Thunderbolt-enabled motherboard today, you can plug in your display into the Thunderbolt connection and still use the discrete graphics to power gaming and that kind of stuff through the Thunderbolt attached device. One of the things that's always kind of been weird about Virtue is that they only sell it to motherboard vendors, and you can only get it if you buy a motherboard that has that software included. That's because they used BIOS keys and that kind of stuff to kind of validate the software and for DRM and that kind of deal. So we happened to be talking with Lucid when we were setting up meetings for CES, and they mentioned, hey, we have a whole new revision of the user interface, because we've always commented on how awful it looked before with the giant cartoon dragon and mechanical looking lady.
She was hot.
No, she
in
wasn't.
A really
That was
plasticky,
that was
kind
the
of
thing.
weird,
She wasn't.
nasty way.
She looked like a mix of like an AI character from a Steven Spielberg movie or something. But so they're going to have a new user interface for that. We have a couple of pictures in our news post. Nothing too dramatic there, but maybe a little bit easier to get around. Maybe more interesting is that they're actually going to start selling it directly to the consumers for, quote, less than $30, which probably means $29.99 or $25. So even if you don't get a motherboard with it, or you have an older motherboard, like an older Z77 or something like that didn't ship with it, you'll be able to buy it yourself and don't have to worry about picking a board based on it. So we'll be curious to see what the kind of reaction is to that, whether or not people care enough to start buying this piece of software individually. They also, besides just the ability to do discrete graphics through integrated and all that kind of stuff, they also have the virtual VSync technology, high performance technology, stuff that we've talked about a couple of times. So
I'd be interested to see how this is going to work, because I mean, if you have a desktop PC, I can see in a laptop, but on a desktop, your monitor is plugged into your graphics card.
right.
This thing fires up. How is that going to push the low power signal through the card?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, if it's going to use the integrated graphics as opposed to the discrete GPU, but your monitor is hooked up to your discrete GPU.
Right. So what you do is you have the monitor hooked up to your integrated graphics, right? And that kind of gives it the ability to use the QuickSync technology, power down the discrete GPU when you're just in Windows and browsing the internet and all that kind of crap. But it has GPU virtualization tech that allows it to utilize the power of a discrete card when you're doing something like 3D gaming, and it is able to basically rearrange the frame buffer, move it over to the integrated graphics frame buffer, and output that to the screen, right? So that's kind of how it works in theory. But on a mobile front, I still think you're right on a mobile product where it makes a little bit more sense. The problem for Lucid is if you're using discrete graphics on a mobile, if you're using an NVIDIA chip, you're going to use Optimus. Thank you. Optimus technology, which is basically the same thing, but only for NVIDIA parts. So we'll see. We're going to talk with them a little bit more in a few weeks as well. Alan, we talked about this on the phone last week, this week, recently.
Just like yesterday.
Was it yesterday?
I think
All our articles seem so far away.
Yeah, December 16th. Yeah, okay, sure. Samsung acquires Envelo and the SSD caching software Dataplex. Tell us a little bit about it.
All right, so Envelo makes this Dataplex software. That's a software where if you've purchased any form of a caching SSD solution,
Like
even
these
like the
ones featured in our
Repo
picture
Hybrid
story.
from OCZ,
Yep.
and like PCI Express SSDs, all sorts of different solutions. The Dataplex software is basically just a driver that merges two drives together so that you can have SSD caching. Simple as that. It's really straightforward. It's just you install this little software package deal. It tells you to choose your two drives that you want to link together, and then the system reboots. And when it comes back up, the SSD no longer appears, like it completely vanishes. It's like doesn't show up in device manager, hard disk management. It all just goes away. But it's hooked into your storage driver basically at that point. And it just acts just like any other, Intel caching, anything else. Basically, the performance is similar. So it's cool that they acquired them, but I don't think it's really going to change. It might make them easier for for Samsung to include that as a package or something like that. But I just don't see them really putting a huge push on that at this point because SSD capacitors are so high right now that I think it's to the point where you might as well just toss in the extra $20 and get enough storage space to have your
Well,
whole
I
C
think
drive on there.
$20 is a little bit of an exaggeration of how much it costs. I mean, if you're going to go from 120 to 250, you're doubling your cost.
Okay, so what's that? I mean, we're seeing SSDs for 50 cents a gig on and off right now, so that's like
Yeah.
$50.
Yeah. So your
Right.
argument is the SSD caching software will be less important going forward because SSD capacities are getting bigger for the money, so people won't want
Yes.
60 gig caching SSDs anymore.
And I think that might have actually led to them doing the acquisition because I bet they.
Why would
You
they
know,
want to buy a company that becomes useless?
I don't. It won't ever be totally useless. There will always be some.
Aliens.
There will be the low end PCs that you want to make a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And not have only a hard drive. Then you can get away with just putting like a 16 or a 32 gig SSD built into the main board or something
Sure.
like that. And you're going to still need something to tie it together unless you want to tie yourself into the Intel caching solution, right? So just bridges that gap and gives you the cache ability for whatever other platform you want to do.
Do you think maybe there's got to be more to that? Is there maybe like an enterprise implementation of something like this that Samsung sees a lot of potential profits in?
I don't know. I don't think their software can scale up that high.
Well, is this the only thing Envelo makes? Is Dataplex?
It's the only thing I've seen out of them.
Okay.
They may make other products, but
They have a really wonderful toilet paper.
what I will say though is I don't know. I'm not too crazy about the software caching type of stuff because it sort of gets in the way of things. Like if you image your system and then you try to restore the image, this adds a complication to it because then when you try to restore from your image, it's like, hey, where'd your caching SSD go? Or you just, your hardware changed out from under it.
Right.
And you have to just like go through and uninstall it and reinstall it and hope that nothing got messed up in that process. It's just an added complication that personally I would spend the $50 just to avoid having to deal with installing some piece of caching software and relying
Yeah.
on that, right?
All right. Okay.
You got to flush that data more.
It's what my mother always told me. I posted a news story this week. AMD announces Mobility 8000M graphics family with modified architecture. And I think maybe some people got overly excited about it because this is the mainstream 8000 series. And it is still based on the 28 nanometer GCN architecture, graphics core next. I actually typed graphics core now there. It should be next. Although maybe it will become graphics core now, and the next generation will become graphics core nexter, or something like that. So they announced like the 8500M, 8600M, 87 and 8800M. Before you get super excited about it, the 8800M, which is the highest end part, only goes up to 640 stream processors and 700 megahertz, which, let's see, puts it on par with a 7770 today. Only that part runs at a gigahertz, has higher memory bandwidth, et cetera, et cetera. So they wouldn't give us any more details on what exactly has changed in the architecture. They just said architecture is slightly different and more efficient than the 7000 chips, which means pretty much nothing. Josh, do you think that these chips are new architecture, or do you think they're minor tweak on each chip, and that's, they're just trying to get out ahead of the next wave of laptop refreshes?
It's a really good question.
Thanks.
I think it is a major revision. I don't think it's an architectural jump, but it's a major revision. Just as much as, say, the HD 2900 XT up to the 3870.
Okay.
Except without the whole process node change, obviously.
Right.
But no, I mean, the performance was slightly higher on the 3870, but they simplified the actual design and chip. And even though end users didn't see a whole lot of difference other than power consumption, in terms of actual performance,
Right.
it was really a wash. And so I'm just wondering if we will not see kind of something like that, except they didn't have the ability to jump to the next process node, but they really kind of cut out all the fluff, made it more efficient, streamlined how it processes data. I think that we're going to see a little jump, and it's going to be more efficient per clock. Okay, maybe a better example would be Steamroller to Vishera. We don't see a huge jump in performance. It's pretty moderate, but we do see a pretty decent size cut in power consumption. I'm wondering if that's going to be somewhat the same as what we see here, as we see a little bit more performance, but at the same time it's going to be pulling the same power.
Yeah, they didn't mention TDPs. They said they couldn't mention die sizes or transistor counts or anything like that. The only thing that they really kind of told us is that at CES we will hear more about the 8000 series. I'm guessing that means we'll hear about an 8900 series part. This graph here, this is an AMD provided performance metric, so take it for what you will, but they're comparing the 8770M to the 7670M. So they're kind of rebranding, renaming the brand scales, I guess, a little bit. And what you see here is, if we just pick like 3D Mark 11, you're getting 40% increase, but like Crysis 2, you're getting 25, and Skyrim, you're getting 21 or 22%, and that's going from the 6760 to the 8770. And what I don't know is, I guess I can look at that real quick, but the 7670M Radeon, let me see how many stream processors it has. It looks like it has...
Why would you bash your own part on that graph? Why wouldn't they put an NVIDIA card against the new one?
So I think they said that NVIDIA didn't have a part in this segment of the market, which I don't really know how that lines up. So the 7670M has 480 stream processors. 480 stream processors compared with the 640 stream processors. No, wait. I did that wrong, didn't I? Okay, here we go. 384. So it actually is outperforming it using fewer stream processors. So maybe the clock speeds are higher, and maybe that some of that architectural efficiency is what we're talking about as well, Josh. And if they can get that in the same TDP, that would be a big selling point in the mobile market.
And it could very well be a smaller die at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Also a big deal for them as well. And here is one graph where they compared against an NVIDIA part, but the 650M G5, which I know zero about. Zilch. Nothing. Nada. So keep an eye out for that. Don't be overly excited, but we'll hear some more at CES. Something else we'll probably hear about at CES at the NVIDIA press conference on Sunday night is the NVIDIA Tegra 4, codename Wayne, as in Bruce, as in Batman. But don't use that terminology because they'll get sued. So this is a leak slide. Tim wrote up a good post at PCPer.com, obviously. I don't know why I say that all the time. For us. What do we know about this processor, Josh? What is improved on it versus the Tegra 3 that we know today?
Well, it looks to be using the Cortex A15 design, which Tegra 3 had 4 A9 cores plus the one low-power A9 core for all kinds of different operations that they want to do. A15 is going to be, well, it's going to be faster per clock. It's more complex. Power savings are not there as much as you would think. In fact, I would assume it would pull a little bit more power than the A9, but it is going to perform better. It's a 28 nanometer part. They're throwing all kinds of stuff into there. It's a true SoC. It does not have the modem yet, so their Icera buy will not be featured in this so far.
Yeah.
Eventually it will, but not at this point. Probably the biggest change that we're going to see is going to be in the graphics portion. They've got 72 stream processors or CUDA cores or whatever they want to call it. Now, if we look back at Tegra 2, Tegra 3, it uses a much simpler setup. I think Tegra 2 was 4 pixel shaders, 4 vertex shaders in this GPU. And I think it could do upwards of, essentially DirectX 10 type rendering, but that was it, and that was kind of a limited subset.
Right.
So we're looking essentially at a DX9 part with the split vertex and pixel shaders. Tegra 3 went up to 8 pixel shaders and 4 vertex shaders. So the vertex performance was the same, but they doubled the pixel functions, and that helped performance out a bit. Now it looks like this will either be a Kepler or a Fermi type design, in that it's got 72, shared stream or CUDA cores that can do either vertex or pixel type operations, as well as potentially GPU stuff. So it's a big jump for NVIDIA to integrate this kind of functionality pretty much at the same time as, oh gosh, who is it, the Mali 600, the 602 series?
I don't know.
That's the latest version. That's essentially DirectX 11 compliant.
Not sure.
It's the Samsung has it right now in their the latest Exynos that's in the Chromebook that was released for $249.
Okay. All right.
We didn't get one.
No, we didn't. It's all right. It's okay.
But anyway.
It's all right.
But yeah, it's a much more advanced part. It's
6
gonna be
times
28
the
nanometer.
performance of the Tegra 3. They're still doing the 4+1 processor idea. Seems a little odd, but I guess maybe if they're moving ahead with the A15 core, that will might be even more necessary than it was with the A9. Keep in mind that Wayne, this SoC is aimed at the upper echelon of tablets and the lower echelon of clamshells, also known as laptops. So this will not be something that will be, getting long battery life. I think they're kind of admitting this based on the roadmap that you see here. That will be what Gray will get to eventually. But I think we'll hear a lot more about this as well at a press conference at CES. So it's kind of weird. Tegra 3 is in some things. I feel like NVIDIA always appears to have a lot of momentum in this market, but maybe not a whole lot. I don't know.
I think that they have a much better marketing department than Qualcomm and
without a
Samsung
doubt.
and any of these guys in the ARM industry, and they just can't compete at that level.
Right.
But in terms of actually selling parts,
Not as big as Qualcomm.
Nope.
Still. All right. NEC, this was a short post. It unveils a super thin Lavi X Ultrabook in Japan. This is a 12.8 millimeter thick, 3.5 pound, preloaded with Windows 8. What else we got here? IPS 1920 by 1080 display, a thin island style keyboard, which I guess just means chiclet. We're going to go with chiclet. And a number of I/O ports, touchscreen, all that good stuff. 128.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
I thought it didn't have a touchscreen.
I thought.
No, it does not. The Y
Oh.
model does.
Okay.
Yep.
The X
Okay.
does not.
All right. All right. Letters, reading, it's hard. A in order to maintain its thin form factor. That is apparently why it's not going to have a touchscreen. It will run up to 7 hours on battery power. It will cost you 129,780 yen, which is approximately $1,539 US. So
Yeah, that model's only going to be available in Japan. And I was kind of surprised at the jump in price. It's almost like $500 to go from the 128 to the 256
seems reasonable.
SSD, which seems a bit much.
Or a lot much. Interesting stuff. I imagine we'll see like 9 bazillion Ultrabooks again at CES. So maybe we'll find
Ultrabooks are the future, even
maybe-
though they only had like 5% of the market.
Maybe we'll find one under our chairs.
I still am
Eh?
planning
Yeah, when you go to the
murder
Intel
Alan.
press conference, look under all of the chairs as soon as you walk in. Just don't wait. Just look.
I think
So that means-
hopefully they're not doing that again this year because everybody would do that. So
I'm going to look under every chair of the
every
entire
press conference
CES.
you go to. Yeah,
Just
no, I
everywhere.
got you. I feel you, buddy.
Is that why Josh walks around with mirrors on the tips of his shoes?
That's
No,
why.
that is not
yeah.
why.
It makes so much more sense now. He's less perverted. A couple of last things, or actually the last thing before we get into our picks of the week. We have another contest going. We have a lot of these because we love you guys. Also because somebody won something and didn't claim it. So we did all these game streams, and I'll just play this video back here for you. We did all these game streams. We gave away cards. We gave away a lot of game keys. Well, somebody didn't claim their 7870 Sapphire card. Hey, look, that's the same shirt I'm wearing right now. Yeah, there we go.
Would you ever do laundry sometime soon,
I
please?
recorded it today. It's still today.
I got smell-o-vision.
So they didn't claim that 7870 Flex. And we're going to give it away again. And it's real simple how you do this. Go to youtube.com/PCPer. Find that video. Comment on it. And then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If we pick your comment and you're not subscribed, you lose. And then also for double points, if you go to PCPer.com... where's my escape button? There it is. And go to this post right here. Win a Sapphire Radeon HD 7870 2GB edition Flex graphics card. And leave a comment here. You get entered a second time. When you can see there have been many people that have entered.
Did they talk about me a lot?
Yeah, but it's all negative. You wouldn't want to know about it.
Hey, there's no such thing as bad publicity
Not if you can say the word correctly.
and fluffing.
Let's end this thing. Hardware, software picks of the week. Mine is this camera. I'm not even sure I'm going to keep it yet, so I kind of feel bad picking it, but I'm pretty sure we're going to keep it. This is Panasonic Lumix GH2. It's a 4/3, micro 4/3. Yes, I'm looking at Ken to make sure my photography terminology is right. And we're going to try to take this to CES with us because we like to use DSLRs for video recording. The problem with the ones we have, like the 7D, is the lack of an autofocus. So one thing we did was we wanted to take this camera. This is the 7D that we took to CES last year. Keep in mind this is the size of the 7. It's as big as my head, not as big as Josh's,
No.
and not as.
Is that the one where you made the nice wooden trestle for, or did you just
It's
do that
metal.
under spare parts
It's
and
metal,
pipe?
and it's this right here. So here we have that same thing, but with the tiny Panasonic camera on it for video, and then you've got the mic pack, which is almost the same size as the camera. And if we compare these two side by side, you can see the size difference between these two cameras. And Ken's looking forward to this because it'll be less stress on his aged 20-year-old back carrying it around. But I'm more excited about it because we don't have to worry about videos we record being out of focus when we don't notice while we're recording. So that is good stuff.
Is that the one you're trying to build that new battery pack for?
Yes, but I actually bought a battery pack off of eBay for $60 that's actually 9,000 milliamp hour, and it has comes with all the cables and plugs, and it actually has a USB port on it, so you can use it for like a cell phone charger as well. It was a way better deal, so I ended up going with that. So, but yes, that's that battery life an issue for that. But $69 for 9,000 milliamp hour battery. Maybe I could power my laptop with it. I don't know. We'll see. So that's my pick of the week. It's $6.99 right now. Actually, I think it's $6.50 at Amazon, but it's pretty nice. It should come down a little bit lower in price soon too because the GH3 just came out as well. All right, Josh.
You're scared, aren't you?
I'm prepared. Let's do this.
Well, funny you mentioned prepared. Because I'm prepared.
Okay.
Wise makes this wonderful product, buckets of freeze-dried food for the end of the world. You can get it by tomorrow from the Survival Warehouse. So many servings of food. It can last a family of 2 adults and 4 children for 3 months.
What do you need?
Tasty,
Water?
tasty cuisine for the end of the world that starts tomorrow or the next day.
Hold on, let me do my math here. $700 divided by 360 servings is $1.90 a serving.
Mm-hmm.
I could get McDonald's for that cheap if I tried.
Yeah, but you know what? Try finding McDonald's after the apocalypse.
Well...
Oh, do you take my debit card? I'm sorry, the banking system has collapsed.
Interesting. You could also use this to go on that Nutrisystem diet.
You could, and you know what? You can do amazing things with those buckets.
Nice.
Big, brown, beige buckets.
So your pick is freeze-dried food. Okay.
Survival at all costs.
Alan, are you next?
Yes, and if
Please
there
say
is no
this.
apocalypse, which I'm pretty sure is not going to be, so second to an SSD upgrade, especially since it's so dirt cheap for the past like month or two now, I'm just going to say RAM. Look at how much you have. You probably don't have enough. It's time to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean,
Seriously.
that was obvious when I put 8 gigs of memory inside this computer for $36. Completely unnecessary, but $36.
Yep. Not only, but well, I mean, if you're doing desktop stuff and a bunch of gaming and stuff, 8 gig used to be enough.
8
I don't
gigs.
think
8
I don't
gigs
think it
still
is
pretty
anymore.
Good. But I mean, if you can get 16 for $88,
Yeah,
why the hell not?
just do that. It's cheap,
Yeah.
and it's probably faster and more stable now
let's
compared
see,
to when
where
you bought it.
is the largest capacity? Let's see, 32 gigs. Let's do 4 8 gig DIMMs. Yeah, was it the lowest price? For $125, you can get 4 8 gigabyte DDR3 1333 DIMMs,
32 gig.
and you could make a RAM disk.
That might as well be an SSD.
Yeah, yeah, like a caching SSD with Dataplex. Okay, there we go. Chris had a much more interesting thing. Tell us about yours, Chris.
Yeah, so for a while I've been looking at getting solar power put on the house, and I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but this is a Sunny Boy or Sunny Beam Bluetooth unit that basically runs against my solar panels that I just got put up. Have
Nice.
12 panels on the roof, and that's them going up. But we got 12 panels on the roof and just got running kind of live today. And when they're getting full sun, they're actually able to put out almost 3,000 watts.
How much?
Holy crap!
How
Yeah.
much of your household power use is that during? The day?
It's pretty good, but it's not a lot because I do work from home and I have a lot of computers running. It will probably cover about a quarter to maybe a little bit more of our power bills, depending on when. Because during the summer we have electric AC versus during the winter we have gas for heat.
Right. So, can I ask how much this costs versus your reclamation period for?
Well, the good thing is at least right now there's a pretty good tax refunds on this stuff. So I'm going to get about 65% of my costs back
okay.
over the next few years through tax rebates. And then on top of that, I figured it's going to take maybe 5-6 years to pay it off, and then
That's
it's free
really
and clear
fast.
after that.
That's really fast. It wasn't too long ago people would say that was like a 30-year, payback.
Yeah. I mean, and the stuff's been going up pretty drastically. I mean, a couple of years ago I looked at it; it was about $16 a watt to get it installed. Now it's down to $4 or $5 a watt.
I'm very curious about this. I'm very curious how the regulation works between how it gets power from both of these sources at the same time, and does it cause you any electrical issues inside the house?
Well, what it does, I don't know if Ken can bring up there's a picture of an inverter. So basically the panels are DC, and what they do is they pump the power down to an inverter panel in the garage. And then what that does is, so that unit will then feed that basically backfeeds into my power panel. So what will happen is when I'm generating more power than I need, it will actually spin my electric meter backwards.
Right. Okay.
And then, at night, the meter will just spin, forward. Now, there are other units that you can use instead of batteries and store all that stuff, and that's kind of the next step if I really want to do that. But so, it's been pretty cool. I mean, just today, of course, it's really late in the season.
Sure.
It's 21st is the shortest day of the year, and today I generated, I think it was 14 kilowatt hours worth of power.
So does this mean every time it's cloudy, you're just going to be super pissed?
Well, it was yesterday was the first day I actually was able to turn it on. It was raining all day, and I mean, at best it was doing, it was like 200 watts, and I'm like, well, it's powering the home theater PC.
Somebody in the chat room,
and you gotta chop that tree down, man.
I know.
Somebody in the chat room wants to know if it can power that Rose Bowl 1600 watt power supply. I'm guessing it'll be close.
It can. 2 of them.
I want to see. Now I'm mad because I was looking at these pictures of your installation, and there was this really cool ad about how quickly toilet paper ran out in the city of Cincinnati if there was a natural disaster. And I just
Well, I guess you better stock up then.
it's just
That's
like,
true. I mean, Chris, it's too bad you got this up now that there's only 2 more days left to enjoy the.
Think
power
of how much
generation.
power you'll get out of the solar panels when the fire and brimstone starts pouring down from the sky, though. I mean,
The
that
neighbors are going to be coming by for power, so.
Yeah. All right, guys, that is going to round out this 231st episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you're wondering where Jeremy was, he's Canadian, and they do this annual pilgrimage to a frozen lake, and they cut a hole in the lake.
Ice fisting.
And they ice fishing. They ice fish. But now that you mention it, they do build a wooden construct around this hole, and they're just in there by themselves.
Really?
I'm going to go with fishing still. So he'll be back right before CES, I guess. We might have an episode before we leave for CES with Jeremy back in on here. And he said he might pop his head in and kind of hang out and maybe post some news and stuff, but I'm not counting on it. So PCPro.com/podcast. That's the URL to share. PCPro.com/live. That's where we record this. If you want to see all the crap Josh says before the show, if you thought what he says during the show is
Bad enough?
right. Yeah, do that. Don't forget our contest on the site. Visit PCPro.com, build a Hackintosh, read about a NUC, look at the HPZ1, and cut the cord in regards to your cable and satellite and that kind of stuff. Let's close this up. I'm Ryan Schraub.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malentano.
And I'm Chris Barberi.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Good night.